Hello, guitar enthusiasts of every stripe and description. It's I, Steve, the original guitar nut. Been a while since I've spoken to you, or since you've seen me, I assume, unless you've gone back and watched old episodes, which, more power to you. I took about a month off. I had some other things to do, other things to concentrate on, and frankly, I just needed a break. So, there it is. I have been busy satisfying my newfound obsession with baritone guitars. Something you might get tired of hearing about here, but honestly, it's rejuvenated my my gusto, my enthusiasm for playing. Kind of similar to what happened 10 years ago with the plectrum electric guitar, which we'll talk about sometime in the future. It's basically a long scale version of the tenor, and it absolutely refired my my engines, as it were. Let's see, what else? Oh, gotten a lot of messages. Glad to hear that people were missing me. To date, I've had 23 people contact me asking for Ming's contact information so they can order their own Chibson from him. And I haven't heard back from anyone, except one, so far, about their experience. So I don't know how many of those 23 or more of you, I might have found him on your own, actually put in orders. I'd be curious, because by now you should have gotten your guitars if you ordered any time shortly after the video was released. But as I was saying, I did get one email from someone who kind of bawled me out for steering them wrong. Apparently they didn't like their Peter Green Les Paul copy. Now, they didn't specify if they actually went to Ming or if they ordered custom from Ming or ordered off of his website, which could make a difference. They didn't even tell me, you know, if he was the seller. It could have been anyone, because I certainly wasn't speaking for all builders, and I wasn't speaking for everything that Ming builds or sells. I was just stating the fact that I ordered one. My friend Jeff has ordered, well, 6 for himself so far and been satisfied with every one. I love mine. I've used it for a gig. I'll use it for future gigs too. I would have used it for more gigs, but I haven't had any more lately. That's all about to change, by the way. My cover band ray gun is booked all the way through the first quarter of the year, which is pretty cool. Lots of gigs, so I'm looking forward to that. But anyway, yeah, anything I say, take with a grain of salt. I'm by no means an authority, and I can't speak for the quality or what you're going to get if you order from, well, anyone. You know, I can only give my personal impression. So I'm happy with my guitar from Ming. My friend Jeff is happy with the ones he's ordered. And the several people that he's referred, I was one of which, have all been happy. So, I don't know. Then again, some people can't be pleased. As my grandfather was fond of saying, some people would bitch if you hung them with a new rope. It's probably not politically correct to say that sort of thing anymore, but whatever. Let's see what else in the mailbag. Oh, some people have responded to my question about this stuff behind me and all around me, what you want to see and when, as to whether to have a special episode or series of episodes where I show a bunch of my stuff, since I've got so much of it, or whether to do a Guitar of the Week thing. And to date, it seems like most people kind of like the Guitar of the Week idea. I can't say that I'm proud to admit it, but I have enough here that I could do a Guitar of the Week every week, and it would take more than a year to get through them. And that's if I don't buy anything else this year, which, let's be honest, it's unlikely. Or buy or trade or sell, you know, I mean, stuff's coming in and out all the time. But one of the people who contacted me was my, well, I guess you'd call him my former brother-in-law, Nick, who said, hey, how about you show the old Stella guitar that Dad, his dad, my former father-in-law, gave my daughter. And I'd actually be happy to do that. You step out of frame for a moment, semi out of frame. If you're a vintage guitar collector, you'll recognize this so-called coffin case. They're from the late 50s, early 60s. And indeed, it houses a vintage Dan Electro. Now, this particular Dan Electro, as you can see from the headstock, was originally copper colored. Somebody decided to strip the finish off so you could see the luxurious natural masonite. These were made of countertop material. Maybe they had in mind that they were going to refinish it in some kind of a color at some point. I have no idea. But yeah, it's a shame because this would have been a very valuable guitar. Not that I would be looking to sell it anyway. It's a family heirloom now. But it's a shame. I've used it for a gig or two. Doesn't have the best action, but it plays okay. I replaced the bridge because the original had warped into a smile shape and was unusable, although I've still got it, of course. These knobs have been replaced. Looks like they came off of an old 60 stereo. Original pickup. And someone added this interesting Stella pickguard that clearly went to something with a large pickup. That's why Nick referred to this as his dad's Stella. It never was. This came off of something else, but it looks cool, and I wouldn't take it off. I have considered having this painted some kind of a color, since I can't really hurt the value at this point. It can only, really increase it. And it's not going anywhere anyway. So I may, or it may just stay as is. So first guitar of the week, approximately 1960-ish Dan Electro U1. So, yeah. And shout out to Nick if you see this. Let's see, who else I heard from? Oh, my dear friend Gavin from the Big Smoke, London, England, contacted me. He plays with a band called The Toad Moment, among other musical projects of his. He sent me over a cracking little song that he composed and recorded, and asked me to lay down a guitar solo for him. That was nearly a month ago, and I still haven't done it because, well, frankly, I have no excuse. I just suck. Things have been going on, and I'm not going to go into them because it's not important. But suffice to say, it's on my to-do list, and it's going to get done. Heck, it could even be today, but certainly soon. So, Gavin, it's coming, okay? You have my word. Okay, so speaking of requests, I'm happy to get your emails at rickenbackeranonymous@gmail.com. Also, you can comment down below. Go to the Facebook group, Guitar Nuts Anonymous. Any way you want to get a hold of me, give me your suggestions, things you'd like to see, things you'd like to hear. Any suggestions you have, I'm wide open, and I'm always happy to hear your feedback. Let's see, what else? Oh, of course, it's been over a month, so I've got some new things to show you. Now, hopefully all of you had a good holiday season, assuming that that's something that you celebrate. And if you do, hopefully you got something cool. I tend to always try to balance the odds in my favor by buying myself something cool in the holidays, and this holiday was no exception. Something I've always had a hankering for was a Vox Mando guitar. It's a very short-lived model, came out in the 60s. It's basically a 12-string electric guitar if it was cut off at the 12th fret. So it's an octave up from standard and 12 strings, and it was just the coolest looking thing. It was shaped kind of like an artist's palette. And I first saw a picture of one being played by Brian Jones from the Rolling Stones. I'll put up a picture over here, and hopefully I don't get some kind of a copyright strike for using someone's photo, but never have yet. There are only 300 and some odd of us, so who knows. But Brian had one. I can't say for certain if he used it on any Stones recordings. There's certainly a few that sounds like it could have been there. Famously, it was supposedly used as well in the studio by George Harrison of the Beatles, although there's no proof of that ever actually having happened. And all the songs I've heard people suggest it was used on, it's a matter of record that he used something different. So who knows if he had one or not. Vox gave the Beatles one of everything, I imagine, because heck, they were their premier spokespeople, by default. So who knows. But an interesting piece of trivia. At some point, shortly after that picture of Brian Jones was taken, the bass player for the Stones, Bill Wyman, went in the studio with a young band, some teenagers, and produced them And the guitar player was a young kid by the name of Peter Frampton. Here he is playing what I believe to be the exact same instrument. I suspect that Brian may have gotten bored of it and Bill probably gifted it to Peter. I haven't driven Peter in a long time, so I can't ask him. But next time I do, I'm going to ask, and I'll fill you in. I'm sure he remembers. He's a guitar guy. We don't forget these things. So anyway, Vox no longer makes them, these guitar. There is a company out of Portland, Oregon called Phantom Guitars that offers one. But there are also some small builders who offer handmade versions. One's called Hammertone, and they're a little expensive. And one is offered by a guy who goes by the name of Teo. It's actually Theodore E. Owsley. He's out of, I believe, Marion, Indiana, if I remember correctly. Here's the gig bag. And yeah, I ordered myself a hand-built Teo Mando guitar. And surprisingly, it's boat anchor heavy. I mean, you'd be shocked. Now, granted, it's very, very thick, but shockingly heavy. It sounds amazing. It's actually going to get used on the next Ray Gun gig. It's being used on a couple of songs. Our cover of Love is the Drug by Roxy Music and The Killing Moon by Echo and the Bunnymen. It's going to be used on both of those, and I hope to use it a lot in the future on some originals and things. But yeah, this was my holiday gift to myself, my little Teo Mando 12-string. Pretty darn fond of this. It's everything I hoped it would be, and having played a Vox original, the quality is 10 times better. The original Voxes were actually pretty bad. They couldn't be intoned and intonated, which is the proper terminology. I don't know. You know what I mean. You couldn't set the intonation. And so they were kind of useless past the cowboy chords. This thing plays in tune all the way up the neck. It's a wonderful instrument. And it's a kind of a secret weapon of some of the Nashville studio guys down here, I'm told. Now, speaking of small things related to Vox, you all remember these guys. I traded off the Seafoam Green one for something that I'll show you guys in the future, but I held on to the psychedelic one here. Now, as I mentioned, these things wouldn't play in tune, even once I had set the intonation. It was really frustrating, because this could be a very useful instrument to me, especially on the job when I could take it with me and use it to practice in between trips and things. So my first thought was, okay, it had 12 gauge strings on it. Maybe I'd move up to something heavy, like really heavy, like 15 gauge jazz strings, and maybe that would take care of the problem. But then a thought occurred to me, and a few people suggested this as well. They said, well, how about you just put on lighter gauge strings and then tune it up? You know, to A or something. And I thought about it and thought, well, wait a minute. I'm into this baritone thing pretty heavily. What if I put on really light gauge strings, like 8s or 9s, and tuned it up to B, so that this would be, you know, a full, well, 2 octaves, honestly, up from the standard of a baritone guitar. And I did it, and perfect. Plays in tune. The chords are in tune to each other. I didn't even have to change the intonation. It just, there it was. Well, which makes sense because the string length didn't change and the diameters didn't change much. So yeah, I'm actually very happy with it now. So for this application, I can very much recommend one of these. I think they're still available for $129, which is a friggin' steal by anybody's, you know, definition, I should think. So there's that. And of course, I'm not finished. I'm not really what you'd call much of an acoustic guy. The first few years that I lived here in Nashville, I did a lot of open mic, songwriter round type things, and of course I had to use acoustics for those. But I've never really considered myself a big acoustic guy. But having said that, I do have a couple of acoustics, vintage ones in fact, that I'm very fond of. And they've both been away and both came back in the last month. The first is the guitar that I generally play around the house. It's my couch guitar, and I use it to learn songs for the band and things like that. It's my 60s Fender Malibu. Now when I got it, it was in just a terrible state. It still looks kind of rough, but the frets were worn more than anything I've ever encountered. I mean, they were all the way down to just absolutely flat to the fingerboard. It was still playable, and I still used it to learn songs, but my friend Jeff turned me on to a guy he knows that goes by the moniker of Magic Mike, who does frets. And luckily, these old Fenders had detachable necks. They were bolt-ons. So I detached the neck and sent it up to him, and it came back. And unfortunately, in the process of traveling and going across various climates and whatnot, it's got a bit of fret sprout that I'm going to have to clean up with a file. But it has frets now. Nice vintage medium frets, and yeah, it's nice to have it back, that's for sure. And once I get this fret sprout thing cleaned up, it's probably going to see as much or more use than anything else in the house, because that's tends to be the case with this particular guitar. Also, my love of all things green is pretty much well known. You've probably seen my Green Burst Rickenbacker copy, which is my #1 guitar. I own 5 or 6 other green guitars. And there was an acoustic company right here in Nashville in the late 60s, early 70s called Grammer. It was started by the country artist Billy Grammer, who wanted to build an affordable but pro-quality instrument right here in Nashville that could compete with the big boys. The legend is that he sawed open his Gibson and his Martin, looked at what he thought were the best elements from both and incorporated them into his guitars. And he sold them for a couple of years. They were literally all over television and all over Nashville, partially because I guess he gave a lot to artists. He wanted them to be visible. But then eventually the company sold out to Ampeg, as so many do, sell out to a big conglomerate, and the quality suffered and so forth and so on. And eventually they closed down in something like 73 or 74. One of the things they were famous for was having some interesting finishes, one of which was called the Green Burst. I own a Green Burst. Naturally I do. I found this particular one a few years back, and here is what their Green Burst looked like. It's basically just a nice gold. It goes to kind of a darkish green, and it's more prominent here on the sides. You can see the multiple colors. It's pretty cool. But apparently this guitar was ordered by some celebrity, I've got to guess, although I've never been able to track down who or what. I've kind of put requests up on the Facebook Grammer Collector website. No one knows. But this was obviously meant to stand out in a crowd because the front finish is like a nuclear avocado. This is the coolest looking acoustic guitar I've ever seen, and I had to have it. The funny story, this was part of a big trade thing. I'd gone to Las Vegas a couple of years back with my wife for a vacation. While we were there, we stopped in at a rather famous guitar store. I bought a vintage micro frets electric guitar, orange sickle burst finish, kind of shaped like a diseased potato, but it had been there on consignment for years and years, and they were asking about a quarter of its current value because it had been there for years on consignment. When they contacted the seller to say that I'd made an offer, he'd forgotten that he'd ever even consigned it or owned it. So anyway, long story, but I bought that guitar, had it shipped back here to Nashville, played it a bit, didn't really vibe with it. This thing popped up on Craigslist. I contacted the seller, showed him my micro frets. He jumped at the chance to trade me, and I wound up with this. And as I said, just the coolest acoustic guitar I've ever seen. Well, what wasn't cool was, like most vintage acoustic guitars, the action started to creep up something fierce. It needed a neck reset, as happens with every acoustic guitar eventually. And so I got the neck reset. and it took 6 months before I got it back. But here it is. I took it over to Greg at Class Axe Guitar Repair, semi-legendary guitar place here in Nashville. And so, yes, there's my Grammer. There's the headstock, the Grammer guitar. Just the coolest thing. So there's that. So yeah, it felt like the holiday season here for me, even if it hadn't been. So that's pretty cool. Let's see, what else can I tell you about? Oh, I mentioned this this obsession with baritone guitars that I've somehow taken up, and I'm going to be reviewing one very soon. In fact, I would have already reviewed it, but they're out of stock already. There's this company called Firefly who sells extremely inexpensive guitars. We're talking right around the $200 range and some less, who took it upon themselves to make a 30-inch scale, so basically short scale, bass scale, baritone guitar that would come tuned B to B and be under $200. They did it. I can show it to you at least. Here it is, vaguely Jazzmaster shaped. 30-inch scale, tuned from B to B below a standard guitar. $169 and change, and then I believe $27 to ship. They also have a baritone Telecaster and a 27-inch scale if you're not ready to make this jump, because this is quite a jump. If you just want to try the baritone thing, you know, I'd probably suggest trying their Tele. But if you're really into going for the long boy and going all in, $169 and it plays great. I mean, it just, I don't even know how they do it. I mean, I understand, yes, cheap labor and whatnot, but you can't buy the parts for this thing, even imported, and put it together yourself for this kind of a price. So I'm going to be doing a review on this, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised if a couple of you out there didn't take the leap. If not for this, then for the Barry, Telecaster. Put that bad boy back. All right, let's see, what else did I want to tell you about? I go ahead and knock out this last thing about baritone guitars while I'm on it. I've had an old Squier Jazzmaster knocking around here for a while that I was going to make a Robert Smith Cure tribute guitar out of. I've actually made one in the past. It looked exactly like his, including the Tisco Top 10 pickup that he added and everything, and the homemade buzz stop and all that jazz, and wound up selling it for a really good price to a guy in France who begged me to sell it to him. This was 12, 13 years ago. But anyway, I picked up another Jazzmaster really cheap and was going to do that. And then I came across a baritone Stratocaster project that somebody put up on reverb.com. It had an all parts baritone neck, 28-inch scale, and they were selling the whole thing for half the price of the neck by itself. I just jumped at it, brought it home. No, it came in the mail. Threw the neck on the Jazzmaster, and there it is. It says Stratocaster on the headstock, but yeah, this came out great. Looks great. It's got one of those homemade buzz stops on it. This is just nothing but cool, and I'm looking forward to finding a use for this in the cover band, because this would be the one I'd take. This is just, it's just cool. Had to share that with you. So if I'm boring you with the baritone talk, I apologize. Hope you enjoyed that nice shot of my behind. There's a lot less of it than there used to be. I've lost a lot of weight, so yeah, good for me, eh? Finally, kind of a public service announcement. You might have noticed that hard shell guitar cases are pretty damn salty. They are not cheap. A good quality rectangular hard case can cost you $150, $200, in some cases more. I'm in the process of trying to swap out hard cases for anything that I currently have in a gig bag, because the hard cases frankly take up less room. They add more protection, and if I ever need to move, who knows if I'll live here forever. Guitars are much safer in cases than gig bags, obviously. So I've been looking for cases, but of course that gets expensive real fast. The cheapest I've found to date have been like $99 that you can get from Amazon. And that's still pretty expensive when you're trying to buy 6 at a time or something. But I stumbled across a Sweetwater listing, sweetwater.com. I'm sure you're familiar with them. They're basically the biggest online retailer in the world at this point for musical instruments. They were selling Kramer cases that were made for the Kramer, Stryker, Beretta, ST, whatever, the various Strat type models. And they're only $59. Rectangular, wooden, vinyl covered cases. So, being the curious kind of guy I am, I ordered one. And here it is. It's like a good quality case, got the Kramer logo on it. Turns out I do actually own a Kramer Beretta, one that I picked up in a pawn shop for $100 that I had fallen in love with. Used this for several gigs. I got it so cheap because the person who pawned it had ruined it, according to the pawnbroker, by stripping all the finish off the neck, which actually just made it feel incredible. Great guitar, by the way. If you know anybody that's looking for a beginner guitar or a knock around the house guitar or a guitar to play at those rough, biker bar gigs or whatever, or just any guitar, these things sell for less than $200. They're ridiculously good. I mean it. I mean, this is the second one I've had. The first one I bought brand new from Sweetwater for $179. I only sold it because a friend really wanted one, and I was like, well, I don't need two after I found this. But anyhow, yeah, do yourself a favor or your friends a favor. They need a guitar for any reason. Kramer Beretta Special. They're just great. But anyway, this Kramer Beretta case is what it looks like inside. It's cut out for that basic, Strat type shape. It's got a nice compartment for, whatever. Comes with a key. Not that many people ever bother to lock their case because, let's face it, if you're going to steal the guitar case, you don't really give a rat's about whether it's locked or not. You're going to get it open, right? So I got this and started trying to stick my guitars in it, and it turned out that 6 of my guitars fit in these. So as soon as I come up with a little more cash, I'm going to order some more of these. $59 from Sweetwater when they're in stock. Problem is, they're not in stock very often. You can also get them from American Musical Supply, AMS, but they're $10 more. It's still a bargain, but when you're looking to buy multiples, $10 adds up pretty fast. Oh, and just as a side note, I was shocked to find that these actually fit the Ibanez baritone guitars, the RG series, which I would never have expected, but they do. So you've got one of those by chance, and RGIB6 or RGIB21. Ibanez has the worst names these days for their guitars, let's be honest. In the old days, they had artist series, musician series. They had names, the Iceman. Now they've got these terrible monikers. I don't know why they do it, but they are what they are. Anyway, I cannot recommend this case highly enough. If you've got a Strat laying around, as I said, it's hard to know for sure what is and isn't going to fit. Like, for instance, my Music Man Sterling Stingray didn't fit too wide. It doesn't fit a hollow body. It doesn't fit an offset because they have wider bodies. But anything vaguely Strat shaped, these things are great. So that's just my little PSA for y'all. It's Nashville, so we say y'all. Speaking of y'all, I'm looking at the counter there, and we're coming up on about 30 minutes. I think you've seen enough of me. Hopefully you'll be seeing a lot more of me soon. My goal is to come back with a vengeance here in 2023. I've got a ton of things that I want to talk about and review. Hopefully you'll give me lots of new ideas. Again, message below, email, rickenbackeranonymous@gmail.com. Look me up on Facebook, the Guitar Nuts Anonymous Facebook group. You can look up my cover band, Ray Gun Nashville. That's the handle at Facebook, and you can see gig pictures and videos, and yeah. So that's about all I have to say for now. So until I see you next, or I guess more to the point, you see me, keep on keeping on, keep cool, keep frosty, be good to yourself and others, and play the damn guitar. That's what it's all about. Have fun. Um, if not, what's the point, right? So until next time, Steve out.